All right, settle in, because I've got a story that'll make your blood boil and your heart cheer. Picture this. I'm standing on my front porch in the sleepy town of Willow Creek, Ohio, basking in the late afternoon glow as it kisses my prize-winning roses year white, the kind that win county fairs. I'm Walter Thompson, a retired history teacher who's called this cozy house on Maple Lane home for over 3 decades. Raised my daughter, Emily, here. Married my sweet Margaret from this very place. It's a house of laughter, tears, and more paint jobs than I care to count. I like my quiet, my garden, and knowing my neighbors, or at least I thought I did. That is, until that fateful Tuesday when my world turned upside down, all thanks to my neighbor, Evelyn Harper, the HOA tyrant in a mustard yellow blazer that was 2 sizes too small. I'm minding my own business, debating whether to prune those roses, when I feel cold steel snap around my wrists. Before I can blink, I'm spun around, staring at my own front door, with a cop barking in my ear like I just robbed the town bank. It's Officer Greg Harper, Evelyn's husband, and he's acting like I'm public enemy #1. The kicker? Evelyn's standing there, arms crossed, her face like a storm cloud, orchestrating this whole fiasco. My daughter, Emily, later dubbed her the HOA dictator, and believe me, the name stuck. This wasn't just a bad day, it was a declaration of war. Now, Evelyn and Greg moved in across the street about 3 years ago, and from day one, Evelyn had it out for me. My late wife, Margaret, always said I had the patience of a saint but the stubbornness of an ox. She wasn't wrong. I can handle a lot, but Evelyn seemed hell-bent on testing just how far she could push. It started small. Notes about my lawn being a smidge too tall, complaints that my wind chimes handmade by my grandson were disruptive, even though they barely jingled. She even had the gall to say my porch trim color clashed with the neighborhood vibe. My house, my trim. I smiled, nodded, kept my grass trimmed, moved the chimes, and said the trim was Margaret's favorite shade of blue. That shut her up for a week. But that Tuesday, Evelyn crossed a line. I was in the backyard, battling some pesky weeds, when I heard a racket out front like someone was taking a sledgehammer to a piano. I rounded the house, and there she was, Evelyn Harper, in that garish blazer, wielding a massive hammer and trying to pry open my front door. Not knocking, not ringing, prying. "Evelyn," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you lose your key?" A little sarcasm, I'll admit old habits die hard. She jumped, hammer still in hand, her perfectly coiffed hair looking frazzled. "Walter Thompson," she screeched, like I was the intruder. "I'm conducting an official HOA inspection. Your door's non-compliant, and my master key isn't working." "Master key?" I blinked. "Evelyn, this is Willow Creek, not Fort Knox. There's no HOA master key for private homes. And that hammer's a bit much for an inspection, don't you think?" Her face turned a shade of red I didn't know existed. "This is an official HOA matter," she insisted, waving the hammer at my door, now sporting an ugly scratch. I'm 68, not frail, and I stepped onto my porch. "Evelyn, you're damaging my property. Put the hammer down and leave before this gets ugly." That's when she lost it, screaming about her rights and how you people think you're above the rules. That "you people" hit like a slap. Her subtle jabs at my jazz records or Emily's visits in her beat-up sedan had always carried a whiff of prejudice, but this was blatant. Before I could respond, she whipped out her phone. "I'm calling Greg." And that's how I ended up in cuffs on my own porch, with Greg yelling about assaulting an HOA official and resisting arrest because I dared ask what crime I'd committed. Evelyn claimed I'd threatened her with a garden spade, which was still lying by the weeds out back. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Mrs. Clara, horrified. Little Sammy Lopez, wide-eyed. Evelyn stood there, smirking as Greg hauled me to his cruiser. All I could think was, this woman's unhinged, and her husband's a thug with a badge. Emily, a 911 dispatcher, would be floored. Little did I know how deep she'd dive into this mess. Sitting in the back of Greg's cruiser, staring at my roses, I felt like a stranger in my own life. My dad used to say, "Don't start none, won't be none." Well, Evelyn had started plenty, and that ox in me was digging in. At the Willow Creek police stat, I own a brick box reeking of stale coffee. Greg paraded me through like I was a trophy. They took my prints, my mugshot, the works. I kept asking for the charges. Attempted assault, Greg barked, then added resisting arrest and disturbing the peace, like he was making it up as he went. I told my side. Evelyn tried to break in with a hammer, claiming a master key. I asked her to leave. Simple. The desk sergeant just sighed and typed. Here's where it gets juicy. Emily, sharp as a tack, was on shift when Greg's call came over the radio. A disturbance on Maple Lane, my address. When she heard my name and hostile mail, her blood ran cold. She stayed professional, handling other calls, but her mind was racing. She knew me, the guy who nursed a sparrow back to health, whose worst sin was a dirty teacup. Something was rotten. She checked the call log, noted Greg's arrival time, and started a mental file. After 2 hours in a hard plastic chair at the station, Detective Laura Bennett, a no-nonsense type, heard me out. I laid it all bare, the hammer, the master key nonsense, Evelyn's "you people" jab. She nodded, left, and returned with news. Mr. Thompson, we spoke to Emily. She vouched for you, and frankly, your story checks out. Mrs. Harper's account doesn't match the scratches on your door. Those suggest forced entry from outside. This smells like a neighbor spat gone wild. Greg acted rashly, given his wife's involvement. No charges. You're free to go. Relief hit, but so did rage. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, was malicious. Emily was waiting in the lobby, her face a mix of fury and relief. She hugged me tight. Dad, you okay? Shaken, I admitted, and mad as hell. As we drove home, Evelyn's curtains twitched across the street. Over iced tea, Margaret's cure for everything. I told Emily, this ain't right. She can't break into houses because she's got a fake key and a cop husband. Emily's jaw set. No, Dad. This is abuse of power. I've heard whispers about Greg being overzealous when it's personal. We're fighting back. The next morning, Emily arrived with coffee and a plan. Operation Maple Rebellion. We drafted a complaint against Greg for unlawful arrest, harassment, and unprofessional conduct, detailing Evelyn's hammer stunt, her racist comment, and Greg's blind escalation. I delivered copies to Internal Affairs and the city manager. Then we tackled Evelyn's HOA reign. The bylaws were a beast, but Emily spotted loopholes. 10 signatures could demand a financial audit. 15 could call a special meeting. Evelyn's hammer escapade was urgent enough to qualify. We started with Mrs. Clara, a retired nurse whose vibrant garden Evelyn once called gaudy. She was livid about my arrest and signed our petitions, promising others would too. The Lopezes, fined for their son's skateboard ramp, were next. Slowly, we built a coalition, sharing Evelyn's overreaches without bad-mouthing her outright. Stories poured in, fines for overflowing bins, bans on untraditional Christmas lights. Maple Lane was a powder keg, and my arrest was the spark. Meanwhile, I played Evelyn's game, complying with her rules in absurd ways. When she cited my roses for unapproved coloration, I painted their tips with HOA-approved gray, barely enough to notice, but enough to look ridiculous. I swapped my wind chimes for dozens of tiny ones, their faint tinkling like a fairy choir. Evelyn's dry eyes became comically flustered. Neighbors joined in. Mrs. Lopez added more skate ramps. Then Gwynn's left their bins out an extra day. Evelyn's control was slipping, and she knew it. Emily suggested a letter to the Willow Creek Gazette, vaguely criticizing HOA overreach. It sparked a flurry of responses, amplifying the pressure. Evelyn's newsletters grew frantic, citing obscure rules to reassert dominance. When she confronted me about undermining the HOA, I calmly mentioned her hammer and master key. She froze, speechless, and stormed off. We had her rattled. The special meeting at the library was electric. Maple Lane turned out and forced folks who'd long given up on the HOA. Evelyn arrived in her mustard blazer, Greg trailing like a scolded dog. She tried to control the room, but Emily calmly demanded detailed financials, citing bylaws. Evelyn's one-page summary was laughed off by Mr. Feldman, a retired CPA. When she claimed misplaced records, the room smelled blood. I stood, voice steady, and recounted the hammer incident, the arrest, the "you people" slur. Neighbors followed, Clara on her garden, then Gwynn's on their bins, the Lopezes on their ramp. The dam broke. Clara moved to remove Evelyn from all HOA roles. Mr. Feldman seconded. Evelyn shrieked about a coup, but Greg stayed silent. The vote was crushing, 37-3. Evelyn stormed out, Greg slinking behind. A new committee, Clara, Feldman, and young Mrs. Gwynn took over, promising transparency. Greg's internal affairs case wrapped up soon after. He'd violated de-escalation and conduct policies, earning retraining and a permanent reprimand. The body cam footage, mailed to me, showed his aggression and Evelyn's lies. We sent it to the city manager, ensuring accountability. Whispers of other complaints against Greg surfaced, keeping him under scrutiny. He avoided Maple Lane, his swagger gone. But the sweetest moment came at our annual barbecue. Everyone was invited, even the Harpers. To my shock, they showed up, hovering awkwardly. After dinner, I clinked my glass. We've had a wild year, but Maple Lane's stronger for it. One neighbor's been very keen on home access. Emily revealed a 3-foot plywood key, painted gold, dripping with glitter and jewels, inscribed, Evelyn Harper, Master Key of Maple Lane. Use only in your dreams. The crowd roared. I offered it to Evelyn, her face a mask of fury and shame. Surrounded by laughing neighbors, she took it and fled, Greg stifling a grin. The Master Key incident became legend. Today, Maple Lane's peaceful. Clara's committee runs a fair HOA. Evelyn's a shadow, her blazer retired. Greg's quieter, maybe even changing. My roses bloom, my chimes sing, and I've got cameras now just in case. Emily was my rock, proving truth and patience can topple tyrants. This wasn't just about winning, it was about dignity, community, and showing bullies they don't own the street. So, what's your story? Ever face a neighbor who thought they ruled the block? Share below. I am all ears for a good tale of justice, served with a side of humor.